Well, Kimberly, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Arlena. Thank you for having me. It's really an honor to be here. I
You're
appreciate
so sweet. Man, we have so much in common. We've been sober about the same time. We have so many same mutual interests and favorite teachers. And oh my goodness, I'm really excited about this conversation. Thank you so much for being here today.
you. Thank you.
So today we're gonna talk about your story, kind of how we got here, but we're gonna focus mainly on solutions. And I am currently obsessed with IFS. And have you completed level 3 of IFS? You've
Yes,
completed it. Girl,
level
that
1, 2, level 2s, level 3, and I'm currently going through the certification process to become certified.
that's amazing. That is a lot of work.
Yeah, it is. It's
I
not
don't
for the faint-hearted, let me tell you.
no, you are
Yeah.
you are not. Listen, and you were a ballerina, and what I know about ballerinas are they are dedicated.
Yeah, yeah, not for the faint-hearted. Yeah, you go, right? You go all the way, or you don't do it at all, right? So,
Yeah, I would imagine we're going to be talking a little bit about perfectionism. Maybe. I don't know.
oh,
Maybe.
oh yeah, I have a lot of parts that are really big manager perfectionist parts. Yes.
Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I am so excited to be asking all the questions because I've seen a couple of interviews with Richard Schwartz, Dick Schwartz.
Yeah.
I've seen people his name. I know he uses both names, so I have never know which one
Richard
to.
Endich. Yeah, both.
Either one works.
Yeah.
But I saw him on the Tim Ferriss show, and they did a demo
Yes.
where he, helped him go through the process. It was fascinating.
Yeah.
And then I saw him do it again with Rich Roll. I don't know if you're familiar with that podcast.
No, not well, no, but
Oh, it's so good. I bet you would like that particular interview because Rich Roll is a former entertainment attorney. So very intellectual, very like controlled.
yeah.
And so he was able to help him like get past like the barrier of, that protector that's like, oh,
Yes.
we'll not be talking about
Emotions. No.
emotions. Yeah.
We don't go
We will not be vulnerable here.
there. No, we will not be vulnerable. We will stay in our head.
Yeah, where it's safe, which is
Yeah, exactly.
which is
Yeah.
a lie. It's not safe there either.
Well, no, I have the distinct pleasure, the honor actually, of being a program assistant right now for a level 1 training. And Dick Schwartz is one of 3 trainers. So he's one of the leads. C. Sykes is the second lead. And then the assistant trainer is Chris Ratte. And then the PAs, program assistants, support their training and help the participants. What makes this very special is that the actual entity that we are helping to train is High Watch Recovery Center in Kent, Connecticut. And it's the first 12-step treatment center in the country, opened in 1939 and still going. And they're having their entire team, doctors, nurses, detox, recovery coaches, therapists trained in IFS. It's a game changer.
Brilliant. A
Yeah.
game changer. That's so exciting. Yeah, I've heard that IFS has just really blown up in like the last 10 years or so. I know he's been doing it for 40 years, but
Yeah.
we'll get into all that. That's huge. And I can't wait to learn more about that. I thought a fun place to start would be with the lightning round, which I mentioned is very slow.
Okay.
Because I always have so many questions. I'm an interrupter. But I always like to sort of front load the episode with some resources. So when you think about, I know you're coming up on 29 years of sobriety on November 27th. So congratulations in advance.
Thank you.
That's amazing. Do you remember like maybe some of the books that helped you early on in your sobriety journey?
Boy, and they're still on my shelf next to me. Isn't that amazing? They're still here. I can reach down and pluck them. So of course the big book, absolutely. I mean, that was my, I have behind me 5 copies.
I know all the editions. Yeah.
Right. And upstairs 2 other copies, and in my bedroom another copy. So I just amassed copies, and I just had them everywhere. One in the car, one in the handbag,
Yeah.
And then the 12 and 12 was also a book that I had next to my bed.
Yeah.
And because of my spiritual orientation, there was a book that had just sort of come out when I got sober. I think it was only had been out a year or so, and it was written by John Kabat-Zinn, called Wherever You Go, There You Are.
Yeah. Gosh, that's the second time that's come up this week. That must have been a really good one.
Well, and to this day, I still open it, read it, peruse it. And then there was a beautiful book called Selections from A Course in Miracles. That was also very much a go-to for me. And then I think a year or 2 prior to my getting sober, Marianne Williamson had written her book, A Return to Love. So those books were like, that was the early sobriety Kimberly in the making. It was the new Kimberly being birthed, the sober Kimberly coming out from the darkness. And those books just fed my soul. They fed my soul. So yeah.
What I loved about Marianne Williamson was that she was able to translate these really, I don't know if complex is the right word, but the Course in Miracles is really dense.
Very,
very dense.
Yes, very hard conceptually, but also esoterically. There's a lot of So and she did it just seamlessly.
You know what was funny is so she would do these lectures and she sold cassette tapes.
Yes, I know. I still have some.
Do you?
Yeah.
I bought all her cassette tapes because she was using, she's lecturing on the Course in Miracles, and I needed to know what the Course in Miracles said about love. I needed to know what it said about money, and just and all those. And I thought she was super funny.
Yeah, she has a good sense of humor.
Yeah. So I remember I when I was brand new sober, I was broke and I have to save up $10 for a tape.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Return to Love is very powerful. Did you read A Woman's Worth as well?
As well. I have every one of her books.
Yeah.
And almost everyone signed. Because when I moved to Los Angeles to attend University of Southern California for a PhD that I never ended up getting, but I was out there doing it. She lectured every Wednesday night. And so I was in that line, and you better believe I was the first one in the line. And every week I would bring another book and ask her to sign. And little by slowly, we kind of got to know, by sight, she'd like, oh, hello. And I'd be, hi, and I'm back with another book. So it was really neat to see her live and in person. And it was very powerful, very powerful.
You were probably in the audience of some of those recordings, I would imagine.
Yeah, maybe. Well, I don't know. But yeah, because by that time we're talking, closer to 2000. So yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah. That's super cool though. That's really neat. I told you this was slow. Tell me a little bit about your self-care practice, whether it's like a morning routine or whether you think of it as a weekly thing. What does that look like for you?
It's a very disciplined practice, and it has been for 29 years. It's shifted slightly over the years, but it remains true to form. So I get up very, very early in the morning, usually 4:30, 4:45 a.m. and brush teeth, get the phone, the glasses on my face, whatever I need to do, get myself a cup of coffee, and then I have a special room, and I call it the Buddha room. It has my yoga mat, my meditation cushion. It's covered in Tibetan thangkas, and walls are covered in thangkas. I have my most precious spiritual books, my journal. And the first thing I do is I light a candle. And I light the candle. And as I light the candle, I ask for the light to come into me. Then I light my incense. And then one of several things will happen. Either I'll sit on the cushion and go directly to meditation, or I'll do yoga, movement, stretching. It depends what my body needs, so I'll attune to the body. Like, what does my body need right now? Should we sit and journal? Should we sit and meditate? Do we need to do some stretching and moving of the physical form? But any one of those things will occur. So, and usually that takes about 30 to 40 minutes. In the summer, it's terrific because the sun comes up early and the light, it's light. And then I walk my dogs. And now that's been going on for the past 23 years, is walking the dogs every single morning at the crack of dawn. And despite some dogs going and some dogs coming, we now have 4 rescue dogs. 3 are golden retrievers. The German is very old, so he doesn't always come on the morning walks, but off I go. And it's usually about a mile and a half. We happen to have a lot of woods behind us, and I created walking trails all through the woods. And then we got this new dog, and I can't do that with her because she'll run away. She's a rescue, so we're still working with her. But I live in an area where I can just walk and walk and walk, and and it's quiet, and the birds are singing, and I'm with that sunrise, the clouds, the trees, nature. And I'm just trotting along with those dogs, and I'm just with them, right, in nature. And that pretty much sets the tone for the day, right? And if I have extra time, I'll do a full yoga routine after I feed the dogs, and I'll come down to my gym. I'll do a full yoga routine or really work up a sweat, And then I start my day with my clients at 8:30. So off I go. Right. And then the end of the day is very special to me as well. I get ready for bed, make sure dogs are all taken care of, coffee's made for the morning, the whole 9 yards. But then I spend a good 15 to 20 minutes, right, after reading and, okay, turn out the light, lie down. And it's about 15 minutes of just breathing in and breathing out, and focusing on that breath, and focusing on, sort of the 10th step review of the day, right? Where did I help? Where did I hinder? Did I hinder? Did I, did I show up? Did I in any way, did my ego step forward in any way? Do I owe an amends? Where could have I done better, right? Did I spend my time wisely today? Was there kindness, compassion, right? All of that. Did I actually show up in my life today the way that I would want, to show up? And then I literally put myself to sleep by just focusing on that breath. In and out, breathing in, breathing out. And that's what I repeat to myself, right? And during the day, I have a lot of different spiritual practices. One of them is when I'm driving, I recite mantras. And interestingly enough, when I first came up here from Florida into the DC area, the drivers drove me insane. People don't know how to drive. And
I hear they're not so great in Florida.
Yeah, no, and not so great in Florida as it is.
Wherever you go, there they are.
Yeah, worse here. And so after some very frustrating moments, I recognized that I was getting plugged into something, like like this Tibetan Shenpa, the hook, and it wasn't serving me. So I said, let's do something different. Let's just definitely do something different. And so this idea popped into my head. Oh, well, just recite mantras when you drive, and how can you get upset then? And that's what I do. Now that's
brilliant.
That's what I
Brilliant.
do. Right. And very, very rare for me to get upset, right, as I'm driving. So during the day.
There you go.
yeah, during the day, I'm either mantras in my head, or I have a book open of some sort that's inspirational that I'm, referring to, or I am always working with my clients, working in there with breath, guiding them in meditation. So I kind of live in this spiritual self-care, in this zone. Yeah.
I love that. Guiding them in meditation. And so that you're always in the moments, always, that's beautiful work.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
It's interesting because the more we're in that moment, the more there's an embodiment of higher thought, or in IFS language, self, right? The more energy there is. And it's not a
Well,
energy. It's like an unlimited resource of, yeah, let's do it. Let's go.
it's like the wellspring type of
Yes.
energy as opposed to
Yes.
frenetic. Frenetic is a really good word.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that's where we need to be. Wellspring energy. Who doesn't want more of that?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about how we got here. So you got sober almost 29 years ago.
Yes.
Well, just walk me through a little bit about what it was like maybe how you started, and how you decided it was a problem that you wanted to solve.
Yeah. So it's interesting. It's a complicated story, but not any more complex than anyone else's story, right? But so my parents moved to Europe before I was 1 year old, from New York City to Europe, and that's a whole story unto itself.
I can imagine.
Which is, yeah. But so they bought this ramshackled place that needed a lot of work, and they hired this very wonderful Italian stonemason to help them, get this whole place together.
You guys moved to Italy? That's where you went?
South of France.
Oh, south of France. Okay.
Right. And so Mr. Bertolino was the gardener, and I used to run around the olive groves and almond groves, and it's just this idyllic kind of, lifestyle, which I remember as clearly as if it was like a moment ago, right? And Mr. Bertolino would take a lunch break, and he had his bottle of wine, and he had his bread and his salami and his cheese, and I used to sit with him, and he would give me wine, and I just turned 2.
Oh,
So, and the wine was not mixed with water. It was straight up wine.
that too. And where was your mom?
I don't know.
I was like, was mom okay with this?
I
A
stayed
2-year-old hanging out with
hanging out with the gardener, and then mangiare, beber, and I'm like, okay, fine, and then the good news was that I fall asleep.
Oh, nap time.
I would fall asleep, to the sound of cicadas, right, and birds, and right, and then the background, the construction going on in the background, it would just lull me to sleep, and that was it. So at a very, very early age, my brain became accustomed to a substance that altered it.
Wow.
And my mother used to tell the story about when I came to America. I think it was after my parents' divorce, we went to a restaurant, and I was outraged that I wasn't allowed to have a glass of wine with my meal.
In the US.
I was 11, outraged, right?
You guys are savages.
Yeah. And so long story short, my mother was married a few times. My father left because he was very busy having affairs. So
fun.
Oh yeah. And when we moved to England, and it was a very beautiful, very elegant, very lovely existence, right? And everything was extremely glamorous. The father was working in theater and film and I don't know what, and mother was in fashion and sort of a hostess for the mostest, and I don't know what. But inside, it was incredibly ugly. And it was very abusive, very ugly. And by the time
physically abusive?
Oh yes. Oh yeah. And
Oh,
by the time they divorced, I think my mother just broke. I think she just broke. And my father's admonition to me was, I have to go now. Take care of your mother. Goodbye. That was it.
and you were 11?
I was 10 at the time.
10?
At 9 going on 10.
Oh my God.
So I did until the day she died. I took care of her. And I love you meant goodbye. So that was,
Oh, wow.
but
What a head trip.
yeah, big head trip. But coming to America was very difficult because you talk funny, you look funny, you talk funny, right? So there was a lot of, I think, external trauma, if you will. And
Sure.
mother ended up being married several times. So there were stepfathers that came and went. There were half sisters being born in Switzerland, this chaos, a lot of chaos. My mother was an alcoholic, stone cold alcoholic. And we ended up moving another geographical to California because she had yet another divorce, which is where I discovered that I didn't have to go to school because nobody checked. Because I was going to private school in New York, but if you go into school in California, in public school, nobody's taking attendance. So I never went.
Wild.
I just roamed around Stanford University on my bicycle. I met the
Were
cool
you in Palo Alto area?
Palo Alto High School.
Fancy.
Roamed around and met the kids who smoked pot and hung out with the college kids because they were much smarter and more fun. And two things happened at that time. I was doing a lot of drugs. But there was an advertisement for a yoga workshop thing. And I don't know what it was, but something pulled me in. And when I went to this workshop alone, aged 14, right, I knew that this was where I belonged. This was my tribe. Right? These people didn't look at me and tell me I spoke funny. They accepted me completely, right? At the same time, and I should have mentioned when I was in London, I started taking dance classes, ballet, and I kept going throughout. And so concurrent with a lot of drugs, doing the yoga thing, I had an opportunity to go back to London and take a whole summer studying a very rigorous program, which
Ballet
I
program.
did. Yeah, ballet program, which I did, and stayed with a stepbrother who I did not know was a drug dealer.
Oh, and you were 14?
That was the summer of 15.
Ooh, scary.
Yeah. So I got turned on to opiated hashish.
What?
And because I struggled with some pounds, like 4 pounds, the dance program sent me to a doctor and he gave me vitamins. And I later, many years later, found out that those vitamins were pure methamphetamine.
Because of 4 pounds?
4 pounds, right? Because if men have to lift you, and that's an extra 4 pounds that, so you have to be very thin. So I suddenly became extremely animated during the day. And then I would, be with a stepbrother at night and be on opium.
Oh
Right.
my God.
Yeah. And so
Total insanity.
it was total insanity. And when I went back to America, I ended up staying in London for a couple, 2-3 more years. I went back to America and went to Juilliard School of Music, where
Juilliard.
Juilliard School of Music.
You have had you have quite the ride.
Quite the ride in the dance department. And long story short, it's where I discovered cocaine, because cocaine could keep the pounds off, but it didn't have the same effect as the methamphetamine, as the diet pill.
Right. Oh, diet pill. Yeah.
So And, you know, some very famous dancers taught me that if you put vodka in the coffee for a 7:30 a.m. class, it took the edge off the night before. And so I was drinking vodka at 7:30 in the morning in my coffee and ending up the night at 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning with lines of cocaine and everything else in between. How I made it through half of anything, I don't know. You know, so it got to the point of ridiculousness. And long story short, my career ended when I was about 23 years old. And a lot of missed opportunities of my own making. Fast forward 20 years, and I was in Fort Lauderdale, having done many, many geographicals, Spain, Portugal, Morocco, France. I was all over the place.
Yeah.
And I was in Fort Lauderdale and I was trying to pull things together. The drugs had ended in 1981. I got a bad batch of cocaine and the walls started melting. And it was one of the scariest nights of my life.
Was that like a psychotic break, or do you think it was mixed with like a psychedelic?
It was mixed with something because it just didn't taste right. It didn't, you know,
Yeah.
it just didn't. Yeah.
And the
So
walls, like, I mean, walls melting sounds like psychedelics.
yeah, there are a lot of visuals, right?
Oh, freak. It's so
Yeah.
scary.
Yeah. So I quit drugs and never looked back. And in those days, 81, you know, you didn't dare admit you had a problem with drugs, right? That was
How things have changed.
how things have changed. So, but as a result, the alcohol increased, right? Really increased. And so there I am. It's 1994. I'm in Fort Lauderdale, many geographics, dating this a guy who is in AA. And I'm keeping my drinking very hidden. Like he doesn't know that I drink, right? We go out on a date, I have water.
Total denial.
Right, total, right? And you know, if he came over to dinner, I'd have a drink or two before he came to dinner, and then I'd throw the bottle of wine out in the neighbor's garbage can. So like, so he should know nothing, right? Everything
We're
is
so funny. We're so sneaky.
right, because everything should look good on the outside.
Right.
And so one night he came over unannounced, and I was on my second 1.5 liter of wine. I was already well into it. I mean, like there was not much left, maybe one glass left of, so I was into 3 liters of wine. And when I opened the door, I didn't expect him, right? I thought he was on a photo shoot. He was a photographer, so I thought I was on some photo shoot, right? Opened the door, I was 9 sheets to the wind. And it was in that sort of that moment of clarity that I saw him look at me and I saw what he saw. And he just looked at me and said, guess I found you at a bad time. I'll see you later. And he left. And I'm trying to like stumble my way out to say, no, I'm perfect. You know, wait, no, let me
fine.
And instead, he was long gone, and I'm standing out in the street, and I walked to a soccer field at the end of the cul-de-sac. We're at the cul-de-sac, and I just fell apart. I completely fell apart. Everything that I had been holding and controlling and trying to make it look good and be good, and all of it just fell apart. And I was on my knees and clutching the soccer field grass because it felt as if, I don't know, I was a little drunk, but it felt as if the planet was tilting and I was going to fall off, right? And I just remember even in that drunken state, just looking heavenward into the stars and just saying, God, I can't do this anymore. I am an alcoholic. I admit it. And I need help. I need help. So please, please, please help me, right? And that was it. That was the last time I ever had any alcohol. And the next day was Thanksgiving. And I made as if with friends and just, oh no, I had too much last night, and had water. And then the very next day, I went to an AA meeting, and that was it. That was it. And my life changed. Yeah. And as a result of that, I dove deep and returned, like literally that Friday. I got back from the meeting, and everything that had been in boxes and hidden away and whatever of my spiritual life came out,
Wow.
and dusted off. Right. And the phrase that came to me was, may I begin again. So I began
beautiful.
with my spiritual journey.
How did you know to go to a meeting? Did you go with that guy?
No, but I saw him in a meeting later.
There's nothing worse than that.
Yeah. So many years prior, about 7 to 10 years prior, someone had shamed me into going to you're drinking, you should go to an AA meeting. So I went to an AA meeting, and a very interesting thing happened. A woman came up to me after the first meeting, and she said, I can see you're new. I'm going to be your sponsor. And I was like, okay, whatever that is, right? Sure. And she told me that I needed to get on my knees and pray to Jesus, and that my desire to drink would be lifted. And I said to her, well, I'm happy that you're a Christian, but I'm a Buddhist. And so I don't, I can choose another way of doing that. She said, oh, no, you got to get that devil out of your heart. Got to get the devil out of your heart.
Oh, that's so upsetting to me to hear.
And I looked at her and I just said, God bless you. Bye.
I gotta go.
I gotta go now. And drank for another 7 to 10 years.
Oh my God. Yeah. That's one of the things that drives me absolutely insane. I always talk about how the program and the fellowship are two separate things. And the people are so flawed. They can be so flawed.
Truly,
but the people should not run you out of the program.
Right. Exactly right. So,
but if you're new, you don't know that.
No, you don't, right? No. And there is no, what to expect from AA 101, right? Although I'm very tempted to write that book.
Well, girl, I'm writing the 12-step guide for skeptics, which is
there you go.
But you should also.
But at any rate, had I been reading the big book more often, I would have known that it's in the introduction that this is not a religious program.
Right. Yeah.
A spiritual program. And
very different.
Once I saw that, it gave me permission to return, because now I knew I don't have to be. It says Buddhists, Hindus, Jews. It doesn't. No, we're right. It says right there in black and white, and so that gave me permission to return. And it gave me full permission to participate. And here's the amazing thing, is that I meet a woman, and within the first few weeks of recovery, who is a Buddhist. And she was my sponsor for, I don't forget how many years, right? So
that's amazing.
Right? When we're given permission, right? When we know that we have choice, right?
Yeah.
So that was that. And
man, I'm so happy you made it back, because the drum I'm always beating are that the steps are a worthy endeavor, and that there's a way around all the obstacles that I've heard.
100%. 100%. And I think, what really attracted me in the return was the spiritual aspect of this program, right? And you're right, the humans are flawed, all of us.
Me too.
But when those two men, Bob and Bill, sat down that night in Ohio, what occurred in the literally the divine moment of their meeting right, to me was the hand of God reaching down, or the hand of the divine, whatever you want to call it, reaching down saying, this will be another pillar on the planet.
Yeah.
And out of that came the 12 steps, right? And a way of life, a way of being where we surrender, we open our heart, we accept, open our heart, and then we clean up our street. we make ourselves a channel, right? A vessel to receive, and a vessel also to become the highest version of ourselves. And that to me, and then we continue with our path by not only confessing, but making amends. Then we continue that path on a daily basis, sought through prayer and meditation, right? And then we have service. We make our lives available to everyone else for the rest of our lives. Yeah. And I think that, it was when I wrapped my head around, oh, this is what it's about, right? Not the clicks and not the gossip and the smokers and the non-smokers. And no, this is what it's about. That was a game changer for me. That really was a game changer. And I never looked back. And, they say that it's, beyond your wildest dreams, right? Well, my sobriety has without a doubt been beyond my wildest dreams. I met the love of my life. I became a presidential appointee after 9/11. Only 2,000 people chosen to serve at the pleasure of the president, right?
Wow,
I was one of 2,000 people. I mean, I was like, how'd that happen, right? I had cancer, survived cancer, which was a miracle in and of itself. And then I pursued a clinical social work career, having done community and policy and the Hill and all of that. And then I changed direction, went into the therapeutic, found IFS. Here I am.
Oh my God, what a wild ride. I mean,
yeah.
And let's talk a little bit. Let's talk a lot about IFS. I have so many questions. So I've actually been doing IFS as a client, or whatever you call it, for a while, and I have found it hugely productive to like getting reconnected in a somatic, in my body kind of a way. Of all the I've done like all the therapies, like the EMDR and CBT, and I mean, like you name it, the process there, like all the things. And IFS is so interesting, but maybe you can start by describing what IFS is, and then I would love to define, like, I know that there's managers, firefighters, exiles. So I'd kind of want to maybe define some terms too. So what do you think?
Yeah, sounds good to me. So IFS is Internal Family Systems, developed by Richard Schwartz about 40 years ago, and has now become a phenomenon because so many people began to hear about the results, and as a result of that, it began to be researched, and it is now evidence-based, right? So that sort of is the legitimacy, the Richter scale of legitimacy. It's been
the empirical data.
Exactly, the empirical data. Yeah. And Harvard is actually doing some amazing research on IFS right now in the Department of Psychiatry and the Department of Neuroscience. So, what the foundation of IFS is, at its core, very simple, but is nuanced, because psychiatry and psychology has never looked at a human being as any other way than a unibeing. I, you, right? Freud said, well, there's id, ego, and, the triumvirate, right? Jung said, well, there's animus, anima, male, female, right? But that didn't get at what about the conversations we have in our head? What about that voice that says you shoulda, right? What about the, oh, go have that piece of cake, right? What about all those different conversations? Well, Dick said, we're multiplicity, we're many faceted, right? And what is all of that in there? And discovered that there were unique parts to our system inside, right? So you think of a family system, and now we have an internal system. And that internal system consists of parts of us that love a rainy day, parts of us that love to sit in front of the fire, parts of us that gossip, parts of us that criticize, judge, control, right? And the list goes on and on, right? So those parts constitute the multiplicity of who we are, right? But within us, at the core of who we are, is something called the self. And that's how he refers to it, because that's how his clients refer to it.
Oh, interesting.
And the self, he soon discovered, was no different than Atman in Hinduism, the Holy Trinity in Christianity, and, choose any religion, if you will, or spiritual principle, and every single one holds that there is something within us that is sacred. So the self is this incredible, unlimited resource of energy within. And he discovered it has certain qualities that he calls the 8 C's. And we've now got 9 and 10 C's that people are adding on. But it is clear, it is calm, it is centered, it's creative, it is connected, it is compassionate, it is curious, and then it's courageous. And the other 2 are, there's certitude. There's a sense of certitude, of knowing, right? And there's choice. So self in that domain does not have an agenda. Self doesn't say, okay, well, we're going to have that piece of cake and then we're going to criticize the hell out of you.
Oh, right. It's not, it's not a conscious agenda.
No. Self is flow. And when I talk to my clients, as I think of any time when you have just been in it, doing whatever you've been doing, whether it's a jigsaw puzzle or pulling weeds or surfing or whatever you do, right? Where you just were in the moment, like that's flow, right? And that flow state is self. So here we have all these parts, and then we have self at our core. And what happens is that the parts take on very unique roles and responsibilities. We have managers, and then we have firefighters, and both are protectors. They protect. So the roles and responsibilities are to protect this internal system. Managers are just how it sounds. They really manage. They make sure that everything goes like clockwork, because their motto is, whatever happened in the past will never happen again. So we're going to make sure of that. We're going to make sure it never happens again. So those are managers. They could be very critical, judgmental. They could really, toe the line.
Very strong managers.
Yes, toe the line, be perfect, all of those different things. And then we have the firefighters who, like it sounds, put out fires, emotional fires. So when things get too hot emotionally, a firefighter will step in and say, oh no, not feeling that one. At all costs, we don't feel. So let's drink, let's drug, let's eat sugar, let's smoke cigarettes, let's do sex, let's do shopping,
let's work.
Let's work ourselves to a tither. Let's do anything to distract from what we're feeling. Because under no sort, so never again, no emotion, don't feel it.
I have a question. Are there specific feelings that the that invoke the firefighter, like powerlessness or
Yes.
vulnerability?
Vulnerability, right? Sadness, anger,
Sadness,
emotion.
anger.
Yeah. And no, we're not going to have that. Right. So that's, yeah. So these protectors.
It's like shut down. They go into
shut that down.
shut
And
it
then
down.
at the same time, they will soothe, because if you're feeling sadness or
Ah.
guilt or shame or remorse, oh, we're going to soothe that one real quick.
So
right?
that's when the eating chocolate or
yeah, having a
addictions.
drink, yeah.
Got
But,
it.
and they're very reactive. They don't wait a beat, right? Managers are very prescriptive, right? Very well thought out.
How
So
does the manager show up?
a manager will show up with you could have done it better, why didn't you do it better? You should have done that better.
Is that like a voice of self-doubt?
Self-doubt, imposter syndrome.
Oh man. Okay.
Why are you wearing white today? You shouldn't wear white today. What are you trying to prove by wearing white today? Right? It's winter. It's past Labor Day. You shouldn't be wearing white.
Yeah. Oh, okay. The
imposter,
the critic. Okay.
Right? Judgmental. Right? Boy, that lady, sitting over there, she, looks like she thinks she's the greatest thing since sliced bread. You don't know that. Don't even know her. But this part will project out. Like
projecting.
Yeah. So they protect, both of them. And they work very, 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 very hard to protect. And the question is, who are they protecting? Oh, they work hard. Oh boy, do they ever. And the question is, who are they protecting? Well, they're protecting what we refer to as exiles. And exiles are the younger version of us within, right? That either had an experience or a trauma or in any way, shape, or form was hurt and is carrying a wound of some sort, right? So in using myself as an example, when I was very young and I was in ballet class, and the teacher would say, faster, faster, sharper, do it, foot sharper, right? Because it wasn't good enough. So it had to be better, faster, jump higher, higher, jump better, more, right? At a very, very young age. So it was embedded in my consciousness that unless it was perfect, it was never good enough.
Oh my God.
Right? So that's at 5, 6, 7 years old. That's how dancers are, moving on, take care of your mother. Well, if I do that, then will you love me? Because you're leaving me, right? So those very young, vulnerable parts that, why am I 9 years old being left with a mother who's an alcoholic to take care of her? I don't even know how to take care of me. How am I going to take care of her? Right? Terrified, then, physical trauma, sexual trauma, emotional trauma, gaslighting left, right, and center. So all of those vulnerabilities within just go, what I call, it's a term I've come up with called turtling in.
Oh, you turtle in, yeah. Go hide in your shell.
Hide in your shell, right?
Yeah, where it's safe.
Where it's safe.
I love my shell.
I love the shell. Nobody can touch you. Nobody can touch you because this one's going to make sure it never happens again.
Wow.
This one's going to make sure you don't feel it.
Ooh. I think everybody can relate to that dynamic.
Totally, because it's true for every single human being on the planet.
I have a question for you. This is something that came up after doing some pretty deep, I went on a retreat and did some trauma therapy. and this idea of what is healing, because I think for me, I can't speak for anyone else, but I think for me, I had this idea that healing was going to restore me to the person I was before I was wounded. And that's a fallacy, right? Like, we're never going to be who we were before the wounding. We're going to be different.
But we can't change the past, right? We can't change what happened in the past, right?
Yeah.
We can't change the wound or the time or the event that occurred, right? What we can change is how we relate to what happened. And how the impact of what happened, how it can be released from us.
That's the letting go that they're always talking about.
I think that is the unburdening.
Unburdening.
The unburdening. So when we get to a point, and it sounds a lot easier than it really is, but when we get to a point when we can connect with that, the asking protectors to just give us some space, step back enough so that we can see, oh my God, it's the 6-year-old, 8-year-old, 9-year-old child that this one is trying to protect, right? Then we connect with that child. We go back in our memory. We go back into that place and time, but we start to have an energetic relationship with that young one, that vulnerable one, the little one, right? That gives it permission to step out of that reality, to step out of that time and space and come here. Because half of the time, these managers, these protectors, they don't know that we're the age we are. They think we're still 6 years old, 8 years old, 9 years old, because trauma freezes everyone in time.
Right.
So half the battle is just getting them updated to like, no, I'm not 9, 59, 49, right? What? You're what? You're how old? No, that's not possible, Yeah, because they're frozen in time. And these protectors have been working so hard to take care of that little one, realizing that that little one is just encapsulated. So when we can allow those protectors to step back and give us access to that little one and update the little one and bring it into the present, we're also at the same time, and I'm really simplifying this, at the same time, we're allowing an unburdening of all the wounds to come out, to be relieved from the body where it's been held in the body, and then be replaced by positive qualities. And the shift is so subtle that I had one client who reported to me, we'd been working very hard, a long time, and he was walking down the street 8 months into therapy. And he said, all of a sudden he looked around and he realized that for the first time in his life, he felt happiness.
Oh, for the first time.
Time in his life. Oh my God, this must be what happiness is like.
Wow.
It was it just, because, it's not like, oh, you come out of session and go, oh my God, I'm healed. It doesn't work like that, right? Because it's energetic and it has this quality, it's a profoundly spiritual quality to it.
Right.
And that shift, right, when self leads, not the parts. So parts will relax. We bring that little one into the present, and now self will lead. And that's the game changer. And the parts just go, yeah, I don't need to criticize so much. Yeah, I don't need to eat sugar like that every time I feel insecure. It's not, no, who's that insecure one? Oh, that's the 13-year-old. Oh, let's work with that. She doesn't need to, let's, and boom, the next thing you know, you're not eating sugar anymore. And you're not getting triggered to feel insecure either.
Right.
So
because that's all the feelings that are underneath the self-sabotaging behavior. Because that's the one of the, self-sabotage. It's like we all know what to do to like be fit and have money, right? It's like we all know what to do, but we don't do it. So I feel like it's the managers that are preventing us, like they're keeping us safe, but it's also a gilded cage.
Right. Because
Right. Entrapped.
they don't know. They're working hard to protect us. These protectors are working very hard, firefighters, managers, really hard, right? But they don't realize they're working really hard and they're not helping. They have no clue.
Well,
They
they're the resistance. They're the self-saboteurs, they're the resistance, they're the distractors, deniers,
Distractors, soothers, deniers.
soothers.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, dissociators. Yeah,
Yeah.
all of those, because they have no clue that the effort and the energy that they're putting in is not helpful. It's just not helpful.
Right.
And it isn't until we can actually get some distance, like, literal physical distance from these protectors enough so that our self can start, they can actually see ourself. They can't even see self because they're just in this mirage, right? But when they can actually have a little bit of separation, then they're like, oh, there's someone else in the room. Oh,
Yeah.
there's someone else in the room. What a concept. Oh, who are you? Oh my God, yourself.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't have to work so hard. Oh, wow.
Because we're safe. I feel like all these things lead back to this, like our little ones, I like to call them the littles, like they need to feel safe.
And that they're
Yeah.
not alone.
They're not alone.
They're not alone and they are safe and they have us. We are there for them. And that
Yeah.
reassurance alone can really open doors, really
Yeah.
open doors.
Yeah. I feel like the purpose of any kind of therapy is to feel better and to enable behavior change.
Yes. Yeah.
And I would say that is what IFS does. It helps you to feel better. Now, when I say feel better, you feel your sadness better, you feel your joy better,
Yeah.
you're feeling all your feelings
It's
better.
much more authentic,
Yeah.
right? At first,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But it's not so terrifying.
Right.
So, like when I work with clients who have anger or rage, right? They are
Yeah.
terrified to even touch, like, I don't want to get to know that part. Hell no, I don't know. No, that's a dangerous part. No, 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 no. Right?
Yeah.
Terror, right?
Yeah.
But when we finally can sort of inch our way toward it, they melt in a puddle of tears going, oh my God, that
Yeah.
poor part of me that is, that rages is
Yeah.
just such a terrified part.
Yeah. Or
It's so
sad.
vulnerable, it's so sad, right?
Mhm.
So as we get to know parts, there's this real compassion that comes forward for all of it. And there are no bad parts and all parts are welcome, right? No bad parts,
I think
right?
didn't he write a book called No Bad Parts?
Yes, Dick, that was his most recent book. No
Oh,
bad,
that was the most recent one.
no,
Okay.
no bad parts. And
Wow.
yeah. So, and they're all welcome,
And
right?
they're all welcome. Yeah, I remember a long time ago, I did something called process therapy, which, in hindsight sounds very similar to this process.
Mhm.
And I remember wanting to cut parts of me out. Like if I could do surgery and cut like the victim mentality, that was the big one, was I wanted to cut it out. And the facilitator got me to a place where she helped me to see that actually was a part that was very powerful because it distracted me from other kinds of pain, and it's actually very powerful. I never saw the victim role as powerful, but it really was, because it really kept me trapped
Yes.
in this
Yeah.
gilded cage kind of a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. That part, when that part is embedded in a story, and the
Story.
story and the belief, right? They're
There
embedded,
it is.
right? 9 times out of 10, it's not their story. It's a belief that they've picked up from somewhere else, from an external influence. So a lot of my clients, for instance, will say, well, I'm not worthy. I'm just going to make it up. Well, I'm not worthy. I don't belong. Right. Well, who told you that? And as we dig into who told you that, or where did you hear that? Where did you learn that you're not worthy or you don't belong? Right. Oh, well, guess what? You were only a year and a half when your brother was born.
Oh,
And
yeah.
now mom's attention was on the brother, not you, and you were left to your own devices. Therefore, you didn't belong. You weren't worthy. You weren't loved. You weren't needed, wanted.
Whoa, that's heavy.
Right. So yeah, those are the kind of, so it's a belief that was because of something else, but it's not true.
Right.
Right. But it's taken in as a truth, and then it
Yeah.
gets stuck in there. Right.
I think that's so fascinating. I remember when I was I did hypnosis certification and learned that a belief isn't necessarily rooted in truth. That was a big aha for me, because it's just an idea that is repeated over and over again until your subconscious mind accepts it as the truth, and then we operate from that place.
That. Exactly, like the needle in a record, right? That's stuck.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
stuck, and it skips, right?
Yeah.
Needle in the groove, right? And our brain our brain takes in that which is reinforced. Well, that can be negative or positive. But if we reinforce the negative, then the brain only knows that, right? But if we take in the positive and reinforce the positive, not only will the brain take in the positive, but our literally our areas of cognition in our brain,
Prefrontal cortex.
in the prefrontal cortex, shift.
Yeah.
So that the negative, where negativity is held on the right prefrontal, that those neurons shift over to the left prefrontal, and the left is positivity, and the left prefrontal grows, expands.
What?
Yes, expands, grows, right? In other words, it becomes more lit up if you scan the brain, whereas this side, the right, will diminish.
Wow.
Neuroscience is really showing today, the past 15 years, what ancients were talking about 7,000 years ago, right? Which is, that if you dwell on the negative will be your reality. Well, now we can prove it in the brain scans.
That's wild.
Right? So yeah, being still will change and alter your perception of reality. Well, now we do brain scans on people meditating, and guess what? Yeah, right. Memorizing long stanzas of mantras, will steady your mind. And now we know, because we're doing brain scans, well, guess what? The memory centers of these monks who chant all day long are like double the size of normal people's memory banks, memory centers in their brain. So like, oh, so you look at the instructions from all those, thousands and thousands of years ago, and, during the 60s and whatever, people was like, oh yeah, hippies, and then it was the new age, and yeah, well, woo woo foo foo, nobody could prove it. Nobody could prove it. You couldn't.
But now we can.
Now we can with brain scans, and it's evident. And there are amazing researchers who are doing amazing work, showing that spiritual practices alter the brain and heal. And some of the work that they're doing at Harvard on IFS is very similar. They're looking at the process of IFS and how it's healing the brain, how it's altering our perception, our cognition, and our, consciousness, basically. Yeah.
So like healing is really shifting, moving away from the negative to the positive. That's the healing.
That is the healing.
The healing becomes the new pattern.
Exactly. The healing becomes not only new neural pathways, right? And by virtue of new neural pathways, new neurochemicals entering the brain to facilitate happiness, wholeness, right? And reducing chemicals that cause anxiety, depression, right? So there's that shift there. Yes.
That's amazing.
Right? Yeah. Yes.
Really.
It's such cool stuff. It really
so impactful. Oh my gosh. And I know. No, I love that. Yeah, I listen to Huberman Lab. I have like a favorite neuroscientist, like who does that. But I love the evidence, because sometimes I just don't have faith. So it's so nice to have evidence, right? something that I can really wrap my head around, because that's where I live, is in my head.
And
Trying to move.
yeah, that you can see, right? That you can see
Yeah.
that here it
Yeah.
is, and there's,
Mhm.
like I said, amazing researchers who have done really incredible work
Yeah.
at great expense to, to their positions in science, because the world of science doesn't want to know about, is there a portion or a part of your brain that, is God-centered. They want to know, it's mechanistic, right? And these guys have really gone out on a limb,
Yeah.
thanks to technology. Well, guess what? Here's your picture. Prove
Yeah.
here.
It does feel like a universal awakening.
It is.
Yeah, not
It,
the woke. I don't know what that means, but it's very positive, and I'm
it is.
very excited. It feels like it's having a ripple effect across the world. I just wanted to mention quickly that that you wrote a book. Congratulations! It's
Thank
coming out in April of 2024, called Rise and Recovery: The Spiritual Path for Healing Addiction.
you.
It's really, it makes perfect sense. What an appropriate, so useful book, because, as you were saying, it's the spirituality that it changes our physical bodies, our hearts, and our minds. And so, where can people, I think you said you have an email list,
I
and you
do.
have some resources on your website as a licensed clinical
Social worker.
social worker. Thank you. I got the email from your team, it was like all these
Letters.
credentials. I was like,
Yeah, letters
wow,
after
this is
the
so
name.
many,
Yeah.
so many credentials.
Yeah.
All I
Yeah.
saw was IFS, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that's my homegirl right
Yeah,
there.
there you go. There you go. Yeah, KimberlyBerlin.com, all one word.
Okay.
So I created an ebook that's on the homepage, and it's basically 5 fundamental practices, spiritual practices that can heal the brain.
Mhm.
And in that, you'll get a really just a taste of what the book Rise and Recovery is all about.
Okay.
But there will be very soon, shortly, advanced copy where you can buy a copy in advance. It will be in paperback and Kindle version, and then there's going to be an audio book.
Are you going to read the audiobook?
I'm going to read the audio book.
Yes.
Yeah, the publishers have told me they really want me to do that. I'm like, okay, fine.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
right. And it has my complete story in there as just one story of many, 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 but
Yeah.
it's the whole story is there. But what I do is I discuss addiction in terms of how the medical model, evolved, how treatment for addiction evolved, how it was viewed, the stigmas, this, that, and the other. And then there was this medical model that came forth, and everybody got very cerebral about it. And it's true that it does affect the brain. That is
Yeah.
true, right?
Yeah.
We know
Yeah.
that. Okay. But along the way, it became very mechanistic.
Mhm.
And you have to, I certainly stopped and asked, because I worked in the treatment field for a long time, why is there such a high level of relapse? Why are the methods and techniques that we're using not working, right?
Mhm.
Why is that? Why? Because we're doing the same thing over and over again and expecting the same result. So could we possibly look at this differently?
It seems
And
so funny now.
so I posited that in my career in treatment centers, and was promptly called on the carpet. How dare you, even suggest that meditation could help, or we can't do with anything here that smacks of religion. I'm like, well, it's not religion to meditate. It's not religion to know how to breathe.
No, right. Yeah.
Pranayama, just because it's so, yeah, we're calling it breathing, not pranayama, and prayer, how about indigenous prayer,
Yeah.
right? How about prayer of the natives of right? It doesn't have to be Christian prayer. It can be, you could write your own prayers, right?
Yeah. Imagine that. Yeah.
What a concept. But no. So when I went into private practice, I made a commitment to every single client that came through my door that I would bring all these spiritual practices to them. I taught clients how to breathe, how to meditate, I had yoga mats in my office. We would do yoga. We would do different body movements. I discussed nutrition with them, particularly sugar addiction,
Right.
Exercising, connecting with nature, journaling, right? Chanting, singing, right? Music, again, connecting. And this book is sort of walks you through every single aspect of that and weaves in how each of these approaches heals the brain.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I cannot wait. I can't. And the foreword is written by Tommy Rosen, which
Tommy
is
Rosen.
magical.
It's just incredible. Tommy's been my teacher since 2014.
Yeah.
And God bless him. And I'm so, so grateful to him. He's writing the foreword for the book. You know, I'm speechless. I am so honored and blown away by his endorsement of this work. And you know, he does incredible work. He is the game changer, right? When he wrote Recovery 2.0, that was the game changer, and it was his influence, and you know, and the influence of some others like Gabor Mate and Basil van der Kolk and a lot of different scientists and researchers that it, you know, gave me the courage to write this book. You know, and so really I'm standing on the shoulders of extreme giants in my opinion, right? So yeah, April is coming out.
I'm so excited for this book to come out. It's going to be a phenomenon. I really think it's going to reach so many people, have such a big impact. It's desperately needed for sure.
Thank you.
So I'll leave links to all the things in the show notes. So the people that are listening now, if you're driving or whatever, just know I got you. I got you covered. We'll leave all the links in the show notes at odatchat.com. And Kimberly, thank you so much for spending this time with us and sharing all your knowledge. It'll have a huge impact. It really will.
I hope so. Thank you so much for having me as a guest. It's really meaningful to me. It meant the world to me. And you are a terrific hostess, right? Host, whatever the term is these days, right? But you are wonderful. And thank you for putting me at ease. And great questions. I love it.
My pleasure. And maybe you'll have to come back and let me know like how the book tour winds up. It'll be interesting to hear like what the feedback you got or how it affected you afterwards. That'll be kind of interesting too.
Yeah. It's going to be very busy 2024. Very busy.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Listen, thanks again. Have a wonderful day and we'll talk soon.
Many blessings to you. Thank you. Bye-bye.